Okay, looks like I am live. So, welcome to to my stream. I am now streaming, for the first time in quite a long while, actually. It's been a little while since I did a stream where I do some arranging, but I thought, you know what? I really, quite enjoy just showing people how I work and give them an opportunity to ask some questions. And yeah, so I thought I've got a couple of arranging things, some arranging work that I'm doing, and I thought I could give people, the opportunity to watch if you're interested and see how I work. Um, so yeah, so this particular song I'm working on today is it is a Norwegian song. It's a bit of a funny one because it's a setting of a poem by I think like an early 20th century poet who was what should we say? It's yeah, I'm not going to say too much about the poet because I'm not, to be honest, I'm not that familiar. His name is Jacob Sande, and I'm going to have to translate a bit because obviously a lot of my audience are not native Norwegian speakers, and so they're not going to understand all the words. But I am going to see if I can translate it for you. So let me get the thing on. So first of all, this is from an all-female choir in my hometown, and they essentially they want this song put onto female voices. So it's a choral piece, and I'll link to it in the description later so you can check it out. And they just want this to work for 3 parts all female choir. I'll talk a little bit more about the choir itself in a minute, but I want to show you the poem. So let's have, there we go, I've got the poem on the screen. So the poem is called Etter en rangel. And rangel is, it's like a slang word for being out on the town and getting drunk, essentially. So I'll read it and I'll translate. I morgen vil jeg börja på ett nytt och bättre liv, tror jeg. Tomorrow I'm going to start a new and better life, I think. Jeg skal aldri gå på fylla mer og skjære folk med kniv, tror jeg. I'm never gonna go get drunk again and cut people with my knife, I think. It's quite violent. Jeg skal aldri skråla viser mer i laddevinsrus, men synge åndelige sanger i Sions bedehus, tror jeg. Okay, so this is written in New Norwegian, which is not the version of Norwegian that I write in. So it's a little bit, and it's also quite colloquial. So I don't know all the words exactly, but I'm never gonna bellow out songs in the under the influence of wine, and it's said in another like getting drunk on wine. But I will sing spiritual songs in Zion's prayer house or temple, I think. Alle kvinnfolk som jeg møter, skal jeg sky som bare faen, tror jeg. All the women I meet, I'm gonna stay away from like hell, I think. Å gå vyrdelig forbi deg som en nybakt kapellan, tror jeg. And walk past them, and honorably walk past them like a freshly educated priest, or something to that effect, I think. Jeg skal sitte som en munk i misjonskonering og drikke kaffe medan drøset går om andelige ting, tror jeg. I will sit like a monk in a circle of missionary wives and drink coffee while the conversation is only about spiritual things, I think. So there's like an implied, should we say, an implied sarcasm in what's happening here. It's this constant, I think, tror jeg. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be good. I'm not gonna behave like an idiot. I'm gonna, be a good boy. He thinks, maybe, potentially, we'll see. Okay. Det skal ingen mer forså meg når det lir til høgste natt, tror jeg. No one is going to see me at the height of the night, I think. Komma ruslande på heimveg utan stivety og hatt. Come walking home without my hat and stivety and my stiff clothing, so like my fine clothing, I think. Jeg skal legge meg når grisen går til hvile i sitt bord, og stå opp når hanen flakser og gjel i morgensol. I will go to bed when the pig goes to rest in its sty, and rise as the rooster crows and flakser. Essentially, when the rooster cries in the morning sun, I think. Ja, i morgen skal jeg begynne på den gode vei, som sagt, tror jeg. Yes, tomorrow I will begin walking the noble path, as I said, I think. Taka striden opp mot kjøttet og den hele djevels makt. Take the fight against the wants of the flesh and the power of the devil, I think. Men i dag lytter for vera, for jeg er jo så spøkje tyrst at jeg må ha et ølkryss og leske meg på først, tror jeg. But today, I'll let it be, because I feel so thirsty that I need to have a glass of beer to quell my thirst at first, I think. So it's like, it's very obvious that this guy, the person saying, the main character of this poem is probably not going to stay, away from the alcohol. Okay, so this is the poem, and this was put to music by, let me get the original email up, someone called Trond Kvernmo. I'm not familiar with his work, but essentially he did an all-male choir song that used these words. Now this all-female choir, they want this song, but they find that the text is a little old-fashioned, and it really is. So they've sent me a new text that they want me to set instead, and so they changed the perspective to a female perspective first of all, but also they upgrade. They make the language a bit more contemporary. So they instead of talking about they take out the bits about the Temple of Zion, like that's a very old-fashioned way of talking. So they've removed that and instead changed the lyrics up a bit. But you don't need to know the lyrics super well. This is, this is mostly going to be concerned with the music. The piece is very kind of traditional choral in the sense that it's basically choral harmony throughout, and it sounds very much like, should we say, romantic, late 19th century choral music. Yeah, Marco, the person of this song is going to do great. I think. I agree. It is a very funny poem. It's I will have to say it's going to be very interesting to arrange it. So I'll I'll add this to the description of the stream when I publish it, but I'll just put the link to the actual arrangement in the stream live chat now. So for those of you in the stream, you can check it out and listen and see what you think. Here it is. And I am going to get my score up. So I've cheated a bit. I'm not starting from scratch. I have already done the first thing I do when I have a new song I'm working on, which is that I transcribe the song. And in this case, I've transcribed the melody, and I've written out chord symbols to write what the harmonies are. And this is all, very temporary stuff, because I'll talk about it more in a minute. I'll just show you the Sibelius. Let's get it up. Sibelius. There we go. So you can see that what I have so far is I've taken essentially just SSA choir, and then I put in a piano stuff here. I'm not going to use this for the arrangement. I sometimes do this when I prepare a score. I put a piano stuff in just so I can write little notes on it, because when I was starting, I was a bit like, well, if there's any interesting counter melodies or things I need to make sure are in there, I'll put them on here. Yeah, essentially, I'm not written in the lyrics because I knew these would change. And I'm not going to play through this, but essentially, it's a song in B flat minor. The original is for all male choir. Yeah, you see here I've put in just a little bit of stuff in the piano part here, just to make sure I capture that in my treatment. What it is it's more or less the same thing 4 times. This is just more or less repeated with the dynamics changing, and then the end changes key suddenly, probably to reflect the fact that the person is a bit like, well, I say I'm going to do this thing, I say I'm going to do this thing, probably not going to do this thing, and so it's it comes sort of it all comes it becomes evident. Kommer for en dag. I'm in my Norwegian mode. It all becomes evident at the end of the song, and so I think there's a symbolic key change to signify this. So I'm gonna first get my the lyrics out of the email, and I will just kind of stick these in, and I'll talk a little bit about what's happening. And yeah, when you put lyrics into Sibelius, it's really quite easy if you just copy and paste. Because I say that now, it's not going to work. Okay, so you copy the whole text, and you can paste it in. And usually, if it's in a common language, it will work without any issues. Okay, so I've got this wrong already. This is a slow. Now these, I've written these out, so if you listen to the original, you hear that these are actually just spoken, and the way they've done it in the original choral version is they just have a different member of the choir saying this little line when it comes in. It's kind of a little bit out of tempo, but I'm just going to write it all in tempo, and then, you know, the conductor will be able to control the tempo anyway, so don't need to write that in. Okay, hang on. This is a live stream. If any viewers are noticing that, oh, your sound is cutting out, there's something wrong, then write me a little note, and I'll try and keep an eye on the chat. I only have like one monitor, so I have to switch back to make sure that I catch any comments and can say some stuff and respond to some stuff. But I am checking, so I will see if I can catch any questions and stuff. Okay. Trond. Jeg skal aldri dø av mer og skjære folk med kniv. Yeah, this is pretty much what the original was. Okay, so here they've changed the rhythm a bit, so I need to make sure that this now matches the cadence of the language. So ut min rus. Ut min rus. Okay, so now I think they've made a slight mistake here. Okay, so now I need to work out how this text matches. Okay, so that's the melody. So how are we going to match this to the Jeg skal ha rumer på glattcella og sove ut min rus. Ut min rus. So the text doesn't quite match. So the text they've written doesn't quite match the cadence of the original music here. Let me just check back on the original poem. Maybe they've changed. Jeg skal aldri skråle vise mer I ladevindsrus, men synge åndelige sanger. Okay, so it is a slight. Easy on Sibelius. Okay, so how do I match this? Skal oppføre meg skikkelig som I et bedehus. Som I et bedehus. Okay, I need to work backwards, I think, to get this right. Because this definitely... Som I et bedehus. So that makes sense. Som i ett bedehus. Tror jeg. Now this does make sense with the original melody, but I might have to change this around a little bit to fit this in. So let's see. Jeg skal opp og oppføre meg skikkelig som i. Okay, I need to change. I think I just actually need to change the language slightly. Og oppføre. This is the sort of thing that I kind of should have sorted out before, but I'm like, I didn't want to. I wanted to save you the trouble of watching me basically mechanically transcribe. And in this case, I'm adjusting text to fit the melody. Skikkelig som vi. Skikkelig som. Skikkelig som i. Skikkelig som i. Okay. Ut min rus. Min rus. Oppføre meg skikk. Okay, so up, Norwegian. My skikkelig som i. Now this is all about the cadence of the language, and this is so whenever you're working on a song that's in this is my native language, so it's not too tricky for me, but like the cadence of the language matters quite a lot for singers. If you've written in lyrics in an awkward way, it's going to cause problems because people expect language to have a certain flow. So in this case, I need to write the line out in a way that makes sense for the cadence of the Norwegian language. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm working out how do I put this phrase, which doesn't quite match the original arrangement one-to-one. I need to adjust things slightly. I think that's probably going to be fine because ultimately you want it to be easy to perform. That's the most, I think the most useful approach to have is to think this has to be easy to perform. It has to work with what people can naturally do without having to, readjust their brains. So with the cadence of the language, that is something you should observe. Or, I mean, you can deliberately go against it and use that as an effect, but then you have to do so consciously, obviously. Ut min rus, og ut min rus, og oppføre rus, og. Okay, so I'm going to do it as a slur. Rus. Sove ut min rus, oppføre, sove ut min rus, oppføre meg skikkelig som i et bedehus. Now that makes sense for the language, so that's fine. Okay, let me get the rest of this out of the way. Okay, alle motherfuckers som er skal si som er fan, tror jeg skal vende det forbi. Okay, so that's just the original text. It is sitter med noe bedring. Drikke kaffe med strømmer varme åndelige ting, tror jeg. Yeah, this is very similar to the original, so this is going to fit. Alle da mutar oops, der skal jeg bli som bare faen. So you see, it's really easy to insert lyrics into Sibelius. Most of the time it does it for you without you having to split up words, but sometimes it does get it wrong. So just, yeah, keep an eye on it. Today. Jeg skal ta på bli som en nybakt cappella. I'm surprised they wanted to update language. I'm surprised they stuck with capellan. That's an extremely old-fashioned word. You don't. I mean, I don't really wander in the church circles, so maybe that is still in use. But that to me sounds like a very old-fashioned title. But it does fit. Obviously, that's what the original is, so that fits with the melody. Som ei nonna i en bedring. 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 Og ikke kaffe med kaffe med en skravla. Laga med drikke kaffe med en skravla går om åndelige ting. Okay, so I've written in the melody slightly wrong here. Hang on. En kaffe med en skravla går om dem. That's better. Går om åndelige ting. There we go. Oh, hang on. Something in my throat. So yeah, that all makes sense. There's the last bit. Let's check if there's anything. Okay, so next one. So this one was quite similar. Now, okay, so this one uses a bit more contemporary language. Should we make it a feast of? Oh, this one uses very contemporary. Okay, I'll say what it says when I put it in. The previous ones have been more pretty similar to the original, with one word being changed into one more modern. This one is much more modern. Okay, so let's get this one in. Okay, so jeg skal ikke bli med hver en kar som bjuder meg på nach. And nach is that's a 20th century word that we've borrowed from German. Nachspiel is the full thing. And when we say Nachspiel, that means going home with someone after you've been out on the town. And there doesn't have to be anything romantic or sexual or anything like that. That's sometimes when you've been out on the town, you go home with your mates and you sit and you have a few more drinks and you, I don't know, watch TV or listen to music. And that's like, I mean, people do this in other countries as well. But we have a word for it, which is Nachspiel, which we've stolen from German. So she's saying she's not going to go home with every guy that asks her, home after they've been out of the town. And in this case, there is probably a bit of a sexual connotation behind it. Sure, okay, so cadence again. Sure. Okay. Sjøl ikke om de frister meg med nattmat eller hasj. Okay. So even not if they try to tempt me with night food, so whatever food you get when you've been out in the town, you go get a kebab or a burger or whatever, eller hash, hashish, which is marijuana. So she's not going to go home with him, even if he tries to tempt her by offering her like a kebab or marijuana. Doesn't want to. I don't. Okay, so this one almost fits. Me push for you to sing. These sings. Okay, this one's quite nice. I don't know. This sing, and then that's that. It's probably there. I'm just sorting out the timing now. So. Is saying, yeah. Is saying, stop. Okay, let me just read the whole line. Jeg skal hjem med siste bussen, på med pysj og marsj i seng, og stå opp når hanen galer og få voksenpoeng. Oh, that's a very colloquial way of saying it. I'm gonna go home with the last bus, put on my pajamas, and go straight to bed. And I will get up as the rooster crows. The rooster doesn't crow. That's the... Does he? Huh. He might. English words. Stop når hanen galer og få voksenpoeng. Wake up when the rooster crows and get adult points. It's a very... This is a very millennial way of putting it, I think. Stå opp når hanen galer og få voksenpoeng. Stå opp når voksenpoeng. Galer og få hanen galer og få... Okay, so that'll be the right time, I think. Når hanen galer og hanen galer og få hanen galer og få. That's probably a slur. Sounds like it should be a slur. Voksenpoeng. That one, it didn't divide up, which it should. Poeng. I think. There we go. Stop når hanen. Okay, so that's the way I'll do it. I'm just deciding here. Like, this is, these are new lyrics to an existing song, and so that's not an unusual situation you might run into. I've had this happen where I've been given a song that maybe an advertiser has the rights to the song and they want to do a version that uses, their brand as part of the lyrics. That's not an unusual thing to do. And I've had way worse and more awkward lyrics to put than this. Like, I've had to basically change entire lines around completely because the lyrics were written out in a way that does not follow the flow of the language. Oh, Michael, you're here. Hi. Yes, Rooster Crows. Thank you. I've been living in Norway for so long now that sometimes the English just doesn't happen for me. But yeah, Rooster Crows. Good. I've got that right. Okay. Rooster Crows. Okay, let's where's my Sibelius? There. Stop når hanen galer og få voksenpoeng. Okay, so that is 3 out of 4 done. Last one. Ja, i morgen skal jeg begynne på noe som sagt, og styre på hverandre helt over makt. Yeah, okay, so this one is basically the same as the original. Yeah. Yes, tomorrow I'm going to start on the noble path, like I've said. I think they might have changed the language a bit to be a bit more contemporary, but that's what the original more or less said. Takke striden opp mot du. Okay, so now it doesn't quite fit with their new one. Takke striden opp mot du, vannar og den heila devel. So the stressed word is going to be heila, also the whole power of the devil. And so I'll have to change. So I'll probably, or then I'll do it like this. Again, this is just matching den heila devils makt. Take the battle, or pick up arms against bad habits and all of the power of the devil. So the original said something quite similar, but I think he just used like more old language. Okay. Men I dag må det få være, for jeg jo så tørst at jeg måtte utflytte. So this is the bit where he's like, well, I mean, I'm going to do it sometime, but I'm not going to do it today. Today, so yeah. Så jeg var tørst. And now Alle skal meg på før. Krus. Okay, so now for the ending, it changes key, and this is a little bit tricky. The Krus. I didn't like that word. Krus, a picture of B. Til Krus til Ole. Yeah. There we go. Bootleg. And then it ends with, I didn't say that, but essentially the original ends with the whole choir shouting, I think. Very obviously, it's not going to happen, but that's what they do. Yeah, and here, that's fine. Jävla törst. Det må ha. Ja. Jeg må ha Etter. Ja, at jeg må. Tørst. At jeg må. This one's probably. Oops. This one's probably going to be dotted. It's the whole thing. Yeah, so it's not perfectly matching, but this just about works. Of course, I will potentially, I'll send it to them when it's done, and I'll say, oh, we don't like the timing here, we want this to change. That's fine. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, because they will give you feedback and be like, yeah. Let me see. Oh yeah, Han Miguel, I am using Sibelius. I think Sibelius 8 or one of the ones above 8. Currently using MuseScore, but this software is quite cool. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with MuseScore. I've never used it. I've heard people say it's fine. I've also heard people say that they think Finale is so much better, or they think that this, or Dorico, I've heard, oh, it's so good. I've only used Sibelius, so that's the only one I can talk about. Sibelius is fine. It is a software where stuff isn't always super obvious, and you might have to. Well, I will say I definitely recommend that people spend some time getting used to the program, because it's not always obvious how to do things, and yeah, that's not. There are potentially better solutions. I'd say if you want to try it, you can get this thing called Sibelius First, which is essentially just a watered down version. I think you can only do maybe 4 instruments, which of course is fine for most choral music. But give it a go, do some tutorials, see if you find it confusing or not, because it's not uncommon to have problems using Sibelius, and I've used it for years and years and years, and so it's easy to forget that sometimes. I think it took me maybe I don't know, maybe I spent the first 2 weeks doing tutorials, making sure that I learned things, and that was just like a couple of hours in the evening maybe. I think it's quite good to use. Like, the scores generally end up looking quite good, but you do have to learn to use it, and that takes a little time. So I couldn't tell you whether it's better than MuseScore or Finale or Dorico. So you can try them out. Like, it's a lot of these software have free versions you can use to try out, and obviously it's better to start with a small score anyway. I don't recommend anyone ever start writing for Romantic Symphony Orchestra or something like that. Okay, so now I have written in my lyrics, and not my lyrics, the lyrics that the choir wanted. You'll notice that I have written in some dynamics here. Now, this was just notes I made during my listening. I think, in general, I recommend that people do this thing called a dynamics graph. And I can show you very quickly what a dynamics graph might look like. I can just show you in Paint. It's very, very, I'm going to draw it. It's going to be really ugly, but I'll draw you very quickly a dynamics graph. Let's see. Oh, it's not giving me the option. How can I get it to turn up? Oh, that's okay. Here's what we'll do. Can I? Yeah, this is the thing where you run into technical problems because you're not prepared. It was quite good before. Let's see. Okay, I'll make it quite easy. I'll draw one. We'll switch back to my face like this. Hello, and I'll draw one on a piece of paper. It's not the most, it's not the most best solution, the most best solution, but our dynamics graph is essentially just a graph that shows how the dynamics, or just the intensity of an arrangement develops over the course of the song. So the way you do it, let me see if I can get this to show up correctly. Yeah, so you just draw, this is just a normal graph, XY axis, with the, I forget what, yeah, okay, so horizontal is X. That is the time, and Y is the dynamics. So that will be F, F, F at the top, and P, P, P at the bottom. So roughly like this. So I will then say that people do this, not because you're going to stick to this, but because it helps you decide how your arrangement's going to develop. So in this case, it starts with verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, verse 4, 2, 3, 4. And then you see I've just marked them up very simply. And I just decide on something, just so I get started. So referring back to my score, let's go back here and have a look. I've written in some of these. Now the ones I want to watch out for here are the quiet bits and the loud bits. The loudest bit is definitely towards the end, and so I make a note then that it ends on a forte fortissimo. It ends at the very loudest, and work back from there. Like so, and then this is just something to give you some sort of structure to work with. So I decided that verse 3 should be relatively quiet. Okay. Make that there. Verse 2 should probably be a bit more strong, but not super strong. And verse 1 is maybe like mid. There. And now I've made a dynamics graph that's going to get me, give me something to work towards. Because I find a lot of the problem with arranging is getting stuck because you don't know what you're going to do next, or you don't know where the arrangement's going. By doing this, you can give yourself something to work towards. So I'll show you what I have. Like that's a completely serviceable dynamics graph. It's just showing me, it's not showing up great on the picture, but like, say it starts kind of mid strength here, then goes up for verse 2, then down again for verse 3, and then it goes really loud towards the end. Already there's some sort of structure to it. Okay, so let me see if I've got any more nice comments. Oh, there you go. MS Paint. Yeah, Ripley, I tried to open it in MS Paint, but my streaming software refused to switch to MS Paint. I've been like, come on. But yeah, I tried to do it in MS Paint, but I hope you could see my paper as well. It wasn't perfect, but you know what? It's not super important. It is just that gives me something to work towards. The best solution is the one that works, Marco says. Well, I agree. Indeed. I arrange in notation because that's just what I prefer to do, and that's what the groups I work with prefer. But if you work with a group that prefers everything by ear, then do that. And even if you're like me and you like working in notation, you can still do that, but you then need to provide them with the stuff that they can use. So that'll be rehearsal files, or well, if you've got loads of time and you're willing to put it in, then you can also record the parts. Rehearsal files are usually fine. In fact, if I finish this in the sitting, I will show you how to very quickly make rehearsal files that they can use. Michael used Sibelius as well. Never needed it to do anything that was not capable of. Yeah. So as Michael says, if you want to use Sibelius, there's a lot of tutorials that you can use. I think Avid, the people that own Sibelius, have quite good tutorials as well. So you can search this up. But yeah, I would definitely advise you to not jump straight in. It is a bit like jumping into Photoshop without doing a tutorial, because it's such a complicated software that you might find that you get frustrated because you don't know how to do things. And Sibelius will, most likely be a bit similar in that sense. It can be annoying if you don't know how to do things. But there's usually ways of doing things in Sibelius. Okay, so I've now decided what my climax is going to be, and that's going to be the end. Now, the original was written for all male voices, and you see this. I've written this at pitch, so the melody was generally in either the highest or the second highest part for all male voices. It's going to be very low for female voices. So I need to decide, okay, where should I put this melody? Now, ideally, you want it to be, in a good range where it's gonna be easy to pick out from the texture. The easiest solution is to put it in the very top voice. You can put it in any voice. I'm often a fan of putting stuff in the alto voice for pop music, because that's where a lot of pop singers sing. They sing in the alto or tenor range, and so that's what people will listen out for. For this particular song, so I need then to take into consideration that this is for an amateur choir, community choir, with probably varying skill levels. Now, I have to confess, I've not met this choir or heard them perform. And so this is, ideally, you want to know your instruments quite well. You don't want to go in blind, not knowing what you're arranging for. But this is why we have kind of very established ranges that instruments will be within. So, for instance, Sibelius is telling me that F is showing up red, because Sibelius thinks that's really low for the alto. Sibelius is correct. And in fact, I spoke with their conductor, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't making any, decisions that would make it hard for them to perform the song. And she said, yeah, if you can keep it above low G, that would be great. So, that would be the G above this F. So often you will find that Sibelius is correct about the way it tells you about the ranges of the voice types. So for alto voices, they generally want to stay below their break, which is, in, let's see, does it ever? Yeah, this doesn't go quite up to the break. Maybe that A flat there. You're talking about the break being, I'll just zoom it so you can see. The break in female voices tends to be kind of around B flat up to maybe that D. You see there it starts going red. Like, that's when, especially people who are used to singing in their low voice, will be a bit like, and they might have to change however they're singing. She also mentioned that with the sopranos, they are fine. I think, actually, I'll check this. I think she said that they're fine up to a D, and then they might be able to dip up to an E or an F. And this is quite common in community choirs, as you want to avoid having people singing around the extreme parts of their ranges too much, because it's hard work. It's like, if you've got really good singers, then yes, they can do it, absolutely, but there's always a chance that it's going to come out a bit screechy, it's going to come out a bit flat, and it's going to make the singers nervous, because they know that, oh, there's a high note, and I get scared and I get worried. And so yeah. Let me see some comments. Choir version of Rain on Me. When? Rain on Me. Is this, I'm not sure. I've definitely heard of a song, I'm sure. Let me write down, I'll write it down. I'll have a listen to it. If you can write the artist, Ripley, if you write the artist as well, if it's not like very obvious, then I can have a listen, and maybe I'll do that one next time. So DS7+1 says, "Hi Knut, I want to thank you for your arranging tutorials. They really help me out." Oh, thank you. I'm really quite happy when people say that, because it's so many people work with and sing in choirs, and they want to do their own songs, and it can be quite tricky, especially if you don't have a formal music education, to know where to start. Lady Gaga, Rain on Me, Lady Gaga. I'll write it down. You just might get your wish. I'm not making promises, but I'm going to listen to it and see. Yeah, it can be tricky to know where to start if you don't maybe have formal music education. So I'm trying to give people some sort of help in this regard, because it's community choirs are so important. There are such great places for people to meet, to do something together. It helps, you know, not just in the terms of creating a community, but it's also really good for people's mental health. And I want people to be able to go into that situation and be able to prepare music that will sound great, that people will enjoy singing, and that's, you know, going to be a great experience for everyone involved. So yeah, thank you very much for your nice comments, DS7+1. Okay, now I need to get actually started with reading. Okay, so I've decided that this last verse is going to be the loudest. Okay. So then I need, essentially, I want to put that in the highest, most piercing range. Typically, voices tend to get their loudest in the top of their range. So if I know that my sopranos are probably not going to want to go above a D, then that's already quite helpful, because then I can plan accordingly. Now, I might want to move the melody a bit around in different verses. In fact, I actually suspect that I'll want to, instead of having the melody at the top here, I'll want to have the melody in the middle with a harmony on top and under. Because this means that I can then use the melody in the same key in other parts of the song and have it as the topmost voice, but it's probably not going to be so high that it'll be really hard to sing quietly. So this is a nice little trick for you. So I've written in, what's the highest? The highest note is that A flat. I want that to be, I mean, that's kind of, more. Okay. I might, you know what? I might be able to get this to work just sticking it up one tone. Let's try. So with Sibelius, it's really easy to move stuff, to move into different keys. Like, that's easy. But when arranging, I do think it's best to decide on your key before you get too far into the arranging. It's generally fine to transpose up or down by like a tone or semitone. But I have also experienced that I've had to move things a lot more than this, and then you have to rewrite like everything. So just be a bit mindful of that. Okay, so third. Okay, that might be fine. Can they sing this quietly? I mean, okay, it is. So this is in a pretty good range for female singers. It has some low notes here, which I think especially high singers will get a bit scared by. But it is generally gonna ring out quite nicely. I might be extra kind and stick it up just slightly more. And then with this one, that's a note that soprano 2s can do. I think even, yeah, you know what? I'll put it up one more tone. Now that's the top note's now C. That's fine, and that means in this chord, this is a C chord in the original, that means I could then do something like this. That would be a very like big chord for female voices, like because you have people S2s might kind of try to do this in terrestrial voice. They don't have to, but then you know you have the option of a really loud chord there. Now I do worry because this shows up a lot. Yeah, it's very, choosing the key can be hard, but it's a very, very important step that you need to take quite seriously. Because I would want this to be. Sorry guys, I'm just thinking. Okay, so I think it's roughly around where I want it. I could stick it down to E major. It's kind of, I'll keep it here. I think I'm not going to be looking at moving it more than a tone at most from here. So it is fine from here if I have to shift it up or down a semitone. I'll think about that as I as I get further in. Okay, so now here comes the climax. Now the reason why I start with the climax is because it gives me something to work towards. So this is the loudest bit. Now this is easy. There we go. That's what it's going to be. That's going to sound very strong, and that is the end goal, which means I then work backwards. And see, I don't like writing stuff out using D sharp. I want E flat minor, D flat. I used to play in a big band, so I'm always a bit more. I prefer flat keys over sharp keys, just because big bands tend to mostly use flat keys, just because saxophones and trumpets will transpose in a way that if you have a flat key, they will get fewer accidentals. So they like that, and so I'm more used to seeing this. Okay, so this will probably be just perfect cadence. How would I? This doesn't have to be perfect, but now I'm just kind of at the end here. In the original, it's basically the melody is not super important. They just kind of have this really emphatic move towards a big chord. So I just want to make sure that this is observed. Moves to the left, da, 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 da. And it changes kind of to a slightly different key, which means it needs to be super clear where the song is going. Let's yeah. I'm just going to use the piano. So it just goes into a completely different key. Just a perfect cadence at the end. Can I get maybe... Okay, maybe there. It is not... It is a little bit tricky, this. And so, especially if you have a community choir where maybe you don't know quite the skill level, if you have any kind of sudden key changes or things like that, you need to make them as easy as possible to sing, as obvious as possible. And SSA acapella is also a bit tricky in that you will... Well, first of all, you only have 3 notes, but also you might miss one note in the chord, because you're, if you I'm not going to say most, a lot of choral music is written in 4 parts, because that means in most situations you'll have enough voices to cover your chords. So I am a little bit... I'll have to see. The conductor did mention that I could do a split or 2 if I have to, so I'll have to see how I end up working that out. But I think that will kind of work, but I need to essentially work from the start of this chorus. So this is loud. If you want it loud, choral style harmonies tend to be a really good solution. So you have something that's along the lines of, and this is very typical. It's just typical, like, romantic minor harmony kind of thing. So I think I'm just gonna have them in block harmonies. Yeah. so I can have a dominant pedal kind of thing happening here. So a dominant pedal is when you have the dominant note of the key, which in this case is A, happening underneath a bunch of chords. What it tends to do is it tends to build tension. Now this will sound quite nicely when it's loud. Okay, so yeah, I'll do that. There we go. So that's gonna probably get out. Maybe not super loud, but it's gonna. Let's just make it an F. Just because of where it is for the altos here. Okay, so now I use this thing called the arrange function. I'm not sure if this is going to show up in the stream. Yeah, so there's a window above my score now, which my streaming software isn't picking up on. But essentially, if you go to where is it? Yeah, note input, and then you see there's a function there called the arrange function. Now this one lets you just arrange immediately. I normally use the key command, which is Shift Control V on a PC. And this means that I can arrange everything on one staff, and then I'll get the program to spread it out like into here. Okay, so now the melody is mostly in the alto. Hey morgon ska jag börja på den. Yeah, that'll be fine. Do I have any? This might be fine. Let's listen to it. Yeah, I could even have have these guys jumps up. These ladies jump up to the tonic there. Then someone shouts this. I'll spread these the I things. I'll spread them out at the end. I'm more concerned about getting the notes going now. I think maybe if I go for having, I'm thinking, so the original essentially uses the same arrangement 4 times with different dynamics. I kind of want to not do that. I think it's generally okay to use the same arrangement, 2 times and then change. I think what I should do is maybe I'll do the dominant pedal thing in the quiet verse, which is verse number 3, the one that's marked with B. I think if I do that, that means I can then stick this up one inversion and really get it a bit more emphatic, because I'm worried that this might be a bit low to really justify an F dynamic in the altos. If I want that, what I really should have is I should have sopranos a bit higher. Yeah, I changed my mind. Yeah, this is what you'll find when you start working. You'll get ideas. You'll start to rethink what you're doing, and you might end up completely changing the way you arrange something, which is But again, you're not talking about a big difference here. But I'm going to keep this, so I'll just write in what I just did over here. This is in verse number 2. I can even have them all congregate on like a single note here. That'll sound quite nice. There. It's always quite nice when you have a bunch of harmony happening and then they gradually move together and then boop, they're in unison. And then I can do that twice. Okay, so now it has this thing where it goes to the major. I should probably have played through this before, but okay. it moves to the major. So this is slightly different. So how would can I? Okay, so now I don't want to have the melody in the second part because I think it's, especially with piano, having sopranos above C might be okay, but it might also end up getting a bit squeaky. So I think I'll probably keep... maybe like that. Yeah, I'm kind of moving the melody around a bit. It's not always staying in the same voice. You don't have to do that. I think especially when you're working with three voices like this, when you're a bit limited on how many notes you have for the harmonies, it might be a good idea to move the melody around a bit. Like, if people are familiar with the song, they will tend to kind of seek out the melody anyway. So it's not a big problem if the melody moves around a little bit. Like, I allow that. As long as it's in a good range. Oops. Now, oh no, that's an open fifth. Okay, so this one is, I mean, it's 2-5-1. It's that's all it is. Should I introduce a G somewhere? This might work better actually. Yeah, there we go. Then we get, so this B flat, which I've written in here in the original level, would be G minus 7. That is typical functional harmony. So in this case, it'll be. You can even have a suspension happening, which I think would. In fact, let's have it in. Let's have this thing in this chorus where it goes into unison. It's always quite exciting when you have stuff start in unison and spread out, or start out and then spread into unison. There we go. And this should all work voice leading wise. Yeah, it's just about fine. This is Pianissimo. So how do I do this? So now the clue is to keep it, the clue, that's a bit of Norwegianism. The trick here is to not go too loud and so not go too high. So this definitely has to go in soprano 1. And this one has a dominant pedal in the original. I mean, I could literally just... Oh, so it's really, really quite nice. So then I'll play it just in case you haven't heard it. Oh, it's really quite nice. Nice romantic harmony. I love it. Okay, let's just get that arranged out. So again, I think for this is probably fine to just go with choral style harmony. I'm just going to make it easier. The question is, so here I can... So now I'm just working out how to get these chords to go from one another and keep all the leading tones. So leading tones are, for most chords, going to be the third, and if there's a seventh, it's going to be the seventh. So these are notes you want to try and make sure are there. And, you know, the root is also, you know, an important note, but that one, if you're thinking strictly of stuff running from one note to another, the root is kind of less important. It's not unimportant, but I think you also kind of it's the one that it doesn't quite as strongly lead places. So I think in this case, I think maybe So third and fifth. No. There we go. Now this is quite a nice little. And here. And then I think I'll actually change this. Oops. So it'll be what we're looking at is okay, I'll have them all congregate on that A. And I'll just have the soprano twos kind of stay between the third of dominant 7 and the fifth, no, sorry, the 7th of the E dominant. There we go. Now they congregate at the A. Yeah, I'm sorry if this is kind of a little bit technical what I'm doing right now. I'll have them all come from that A. That should just about be fine. I mean, we're talking about doing an octave for the Sibelius. So this is where Sibelius is wrong. This is not going to work. So that A, oh no, that A is not going to come up pianissimo unless you have basically the best singers. There we go. It's noting here that this is low. It is not incorrect. It is low for high singers to sing that A, but this is a situation where it's an all-female choir, which means that they don't need to project that strongly. They're in unison, and it's pianissimo. It's going to be fine. If I tried to get this out fortissimo, you know, the higher singers might find that difficult, and that's fair enough. But for pianissimo, I will say that this is fine. And you can, yeah, you can say that Knut said it's fine. Let's keep an eye on the chat. Okay, right. So let's continue. And here we have a little cadence. And again, it's still quiet. It doesn't really get loud until you have this little swell happening here, and then I'm just going to make sure that's on a nice range. Okay, let's see. We sing. So I do worry here about voice leading. I found this. Or sing. I think I'll actually have these guys go up a fifth instead. And this is, it's not going to ring out too strongly, but what I want is I want them to avoid having to go up an octave and then further up. This is typically like a problematic voice leading thing. I think they're just about going to be able to sing that C quietly, so that is fine. But this way I'm setting them more up to reach up to that C. So this uses kind of folky romantic harmony. So again, this is just what I've written out underneath. I just picked this up from the original recording. And again, that's just air training. Just being used to hearing what chords sound like. Okay, I definitely want a suspension here. Make that a minor. So typical, sometimes harmony teachers will be like, you don't put the minor third on a dominant because that sounds wrong, that sounds weak. For folk music, it sounds good. So I'll There we go. And then I'll keep just sopranos and the sopranos there, and then have the altos do this dum 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 in their range, of course. And then I get the effect of that. I've got a question from DS7+1. Have you ever performed Eastern European or Orthodox Christian chapel music like Tchaikovsky? Oh, that's okay. So yes, I have. I used to sing in the London Philharmonic Choir in London, and we did perform quite a lot of Eastern European music. The conductor, when I was in LPC, the conductor of the Philharmonic Orchestra, that is, was Vladimir Jurovsky. And he was very interested in getting more music from Russian composers and other Eastern European composers. And he also brought in some material that's not too well known. So we did, for instance, some music by a composer called Janacek, I think, Janacek. Let me just have a quick... yeah, Janacek, Czech composer. Really, really good composer. The music was so good. We performed The Bells by Rachmaninoff, I think. Yeah, I think he wrote The Bells, didn't he? The Bells. Sorry, I'm checking this because I don't want to be saying wrong things. Music. Yeah, Rachmaninoff. So The Bells is such a good piece. So I have performed this. And speaking of Tchaikovsky, who's one of my personal favorites, so recently I recorded with a chamber choir in my hometown called Karmakuda Odom, and we recorded the Hymn of the Cherubim by Tchaikovsky. And in fact, I'll share, because this was actually used in a video game, I'll share this recording with you. Tchaikovsky. Yeah, I'll get this. This was recorded for a video game, and like if you play this video game, there are actually some bits where you can where you hear my voice in isolation, which I thought was really quite nice and a bit embarrassing, but like I was like, oh, there's my voice. Hello. Yeah, this is something that we recorded by Tchaikovsky. But yeah, with the chapel music, I mean, a lot of choral music from the time of Tchaikovsky and the Romantics, that was mostly religious music. Not all of it. The Bells, for instance, is not really a religious piece as such, but a lot of that music does have religious themes. But I guess the short answer is yes, I have performed, but I've not performed it in maybe the traditional settings. I've just performed them as concert pieces with choirs. Okay. There we go. That nice little. That should just. Yeah, this should sound quite nice. I'm gonna get the link in a minute. Sorry, the link between these two phrases is what I mean. But this all looks good voice leading wise. Here, this one doesn't have to. So sometimes when you use the arrange function, you have to clean up your notation a little bit. So this Sibelius does this sometimes. It puts the hyphens in the wrong place. Yeah, it's a program that's really quite useful, but sometimes it's a little bit jank. You have to like drag it like that. Okay, and then they do this little thing in their range. So how does this phrase work? Because now again, it's a question of the cadence of the language, and I realize that's not. I'm assuming I don't have loads of Norwegian native speakers in the audience right now, but I need to work out the cadence to make this. Actually, it's probably not too big of a crime if I just make it slightly. Bang. There we go. Do it. And keep these that far. Oops. And just get the lines in. There. Okay, let me just look over. Okay, so I need to make sure that this. Oh, this is easy. Okay, so they jump straight up to D minor. That's fine for all parts, I think. There, and that leads nicely into the next phrase as well. Now, I might have to write in breaths here. Okay, so this. Yeah, this is fine. So I need to just clean up the notation a little bit. Should I? So now I always think about where do people breathe, and I think it's a really good idea in general when you do choral music to think where are folk, where are folk, where are people going to breathe? They are going to have to breathe here, unfortunately. So I'm just going to write that as a short sing. This word disappeared. When? Okay, so this. I mean, ideally, I want them to just take a big breath and get this all in one phrase. So then I use this thing, this little line here, which indicates that this is supposed to be carried over. I might have to leave that at the discretion of the conductor because it's hard. It's hard to do really long phrases if you're not used to practicing a lot of breath control. Which of course I don't know how good this choir is at breath control, so I might be asking for trouble doing this. But let's write it in, and worst case they will make an executive decision to change it. Okay, this all looks good. This is all fine. So like these chords I've written down here, I'll just say they're just my notes. I'm not going to put these on the sheet music when I send it off. If I were doing a piano part, I'd probably leave chord symbols on for the pianist if it's a pop kind of song. Again, this depends on what sort of people you're working with. If it's a classically styled piece, I don't think it's particularly common to leave the chord symbols on. I don't think it's a crime. But it's not super common. Okay, let's move on to. So I said I was going to start with the loud verse. I said I was starting with a quiet verse. But it's also start with one of the extremes, either the loudest or the quietest, because then you know what you're working towards. And I know now this is the quietest verse sorted. Now, the loudest verse has to be different. I've not really done anything super counterpointy just yet. So like it's all choral style harmonies. I might choose to introduce a little bit of counter melodies at some point. I'll have to think about it. Okay, so now for this loud verse, now because I did the dominant pedal thing, which I mentioned in the previous verse, I now want to not do that here. I want this to be different, to avoid this thing of it being same. So I'll put the melody in the middle. Okay, so there's an. Yeah, it's okay. Actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. There we go. I don't like using diminished chords as leading chords. So what I mean is, I prefer that kind of motion rather than, just because I think the latter sounds slightly weaker. it's not the worst. It's just a taste thing, and I'm not gonna, you know, if you do that, then that's completely fine. But it's like I've sometimes heard songs that will do, and it makes me cringe a bit. I think they should do that, or where it's where there is an A in any sort of inversion rather, or a dominant in some sort of inversion rather than a diminished chord. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm talking about music theory and I love music theory. Okay, I'm going to scrap these because okay, so now the promise here is that I'm missing the melody. Now this is a problem. Okay, let's do it like this instead. Yeah, this is okay. Okay, so now I'm doing the other kind of pedal, which is a tonic pedal. A little bit more stable, but essentially it's like the note at the bottom stays the same, and in this case it's the root of the key. I'm doing this for two reasons. First of all, because it sounds cool, but also because it's a bit higher in range here, so that means that they can get a bit more volume. No, I'll say that. Oops. There we go. So now the melody will move a bit between parts, but the idea is it stays in a higher range, which will make it easier for them to get a bit more volume behind it. In fact, I'll change this. Not triple F. That's going to be overkill. But just give them work a bit more with the voice. Like make sure that it's in a range where they're able to observe the dynamics without having to work so hard. Michael has a comment. When I've reworked some of my scores to check for breaths, I always think that the singers can thank Knut for that space to breathe. Oh, thank you, Michael. Yeah, so Michael got me to look over some of his scores some time back, and I think one of my comments was like, "Oh, where are the singers going to breathe? You need to show them where they're going to breathe because," and again, singers will breathe. They have to breathe. It's impossible to sing without taking a breath sometimes, but I find that it saves rehearsal time if you write breaths in. I normally write them with rests. Some people use little comma marks. I can show you the comma marks while I'm here. So a comma mark is in the symbols menu. It's the key command Z. It's that one, comma. It's just a comma. And you just put it there, and then that indicates to people take a breath before the next one. That's all. Either are fine. And Sibelius will observe both of them when it does playback. So, okay, Trudig. Okay, so now I'll stay with the same theme again. So. There we go. So there we have people in a relatively high range. Melody. And mostly in soprano 2, and then switches to soprano 1 towards the end. Now this means I get that nice effect of the high D, which is going to ring out quite nicely, and it's kind of a loud dynamic for a community choir will work nicely, or should work nicely. I shouldn't assume, but I think it will. I think the voice leading is mostly fine here. Can I maybe... Actually, you know what? Let's be a bit more daring. Keep these guys up here. There. There, now I get them, I put them up another inversion. Let me just play this. That's going to be quite emphatic because of where it is in the voice. And I still get the effect of the melody, which is mostly in the soprano too here. But switches between the parts of it. By this point in the song, they will have heard the melody 3 times, so they know what to expect. It's not going to be confusing. It shouldn't be confusing. Okay, let's move on. Now it's quiet again. So now what I can do is I can use... yeah, and this leads up into this key change, which I'll address in a second. I think I can just reuse what I did in the quiet bit here. So in this case, I am sorry, but I'm going to zoom out a bit, and I'm just going to... Okay, so in this case, I'm just copying what's on the far left side of the screen. There we go. I'm just choosing starting notes based on what's going to make it easiest for them. Okay, so here I need to change something to get... So now, yeah, so here comes the challenge of the key change. Let's just get the stuff that's kind of... that's set and that I don't want to change, which is the first half. This is going to work nicely in P. Piano, that is. And now, ooh, you don't like these being low, but they're going to have to be. So in this case, I changed the first notes just because they're up on a C here. For them to then readjust their brains, go all the way down on that A and up an octave, that is going to be confusing and probably end up sounding a bit timid. So I'm just giving... Like, it's with octaves, you can sometimes get fooled. Like the brain will put the math together and mix, you know, puts the sound at wherever octave it wants the sound to be at, rather than the sound the octave it's actually at. So I am not against having octaves here above, an octave above where I had them in the earlier rendition. Okay, so here I'll change things slightly. Yeah, here we go, because that might work. Let's write this out, listen to it, and decide if it sounds too stark and stuff, and then I'll decide if maybe I should change things a little bit. So it's not maybe the cleanest key change. It's not the worst. Let's get some breaths in first. Breathe here. Set the notation a bit. And I want to get... This is a suspended C chord. That makes sense musically. Okay, so in isolation, that sounds good. Let me just think. Let's listen to it again. Sometimes you will have this where like you worked it out so that like the theory works, but it maybe sounds a little bit stark. Then you need to try out different things. Well, I hear it again, and you know what? I'm kind of buying this. I think I'll leave this. When I listen to it again, as I finish, I might decide that this sounds weak, this sounds wrong, but it's not too bad. I'm kind of buying it. Okay, cool. So now I'm basically half done with the arrangement. Let's yeah. So now I have 2 verses left to arrange. Now I think it's probably nice to start with something that's fairly straightforward to sing, and then maybe try something a little different in the second one. Okay, so here's one thing I think. Okay, so before I go to those, because I want to avoid the situation where it's block harmonies the whole time, I'm going to do something slightly different here. So I want the altos to have kind of so now I'm just changing what's happening here so that we get some different stuff in the parts. Again, it's going to be dominant pedal. Just to create some variation. Yeah, same thing. Ja. Kör inte rej spar med yeah, I mean, it's so similar to the other parts that I'll just copy their thing. There we go. This just creates something different. And here as well. He's calling. Okay, so this one, long note. Maybe if some of these ladies can do overtone singing, this will be a good moment for that, where you have this like booming, like it's really quite impressive how booming and bassy the female voice gets in this range. Like you would be surprised that it sounds almost like it's an octave lower than it is if you have good ability singers here. So having this thing kind of sticking in the bottom. Yeah, this will sound quite nice, and it just creates some variation. It's not all just choral harmonies. There is like something else happening. DS7+1 writes, any thought on the Finnish composer Jaakko Mäntyjärvi? Okay, so I've not heard, as far as I know, I've not heard any of their music, so I don't have any thoughts apart from I haven't heard them. I can write them down next to Rain on Me by Lady Gaga. I'll write down Jaakko Mäntyjärvi. Jaakko Mäntyjärvi. Yeah, no, as far as I know, I haven't heard any of their music, but I might have encountered it in some way in my if they do a lot of choral music, then there is a chance that I would have, perhaps run into some of it, but I can't off the top of my head remember that name specifically. I'll write it down and I'll check it out. Right. So yeah, I quite like it when I quite like working in notation. Like you have to find your own preferred way of working. I like working this way because I like seeing things visually, and then I will be able to structure it in my head. That's I've always kind of been a bit like this, where I like seeing it and then structuring it all visually. So for me, it's kind of very natural to do the same in music. But it's not the only way of working, of course. You can absolutely work by ear. You can record yourself, use Logic or Cubase or whatever you have, and arrange that way, and then export your parts as rehearsal parts if you find that this is what gets your creativity going. But this for me works best. Okay, I think. Okay, so I'll arrange the first verse pretty simply. It's also because it's the first verse, you want to, if you keep it kind of simple in the rhythm and the way it's arranged, then that will also help the melody be established clearly in the ears of the audience. So I think I'll do block harmonies with the melody in the middle. This is also a very typical gospel style of arranging, where you have a 3-part harmony with the melody in the middle part. I'm not doing it because I want it to sound like gospel, but I'm doing it because that means that I can do this. Like so. Now the melody does move around a little bit, but I just want to have kind of this very simple dum, 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 dum. And it's probably even better if I do B flat. There, so you have this clear bass line happening in the altos. I morgon vil jeg börja på ett nytt och bättre liv. So I'm doing it mostly to accommodate just having this nice little two feel bass in the altos. Spread that out using the arrangement function. And it's MF, and this should be like quite a manageable range for these singers to do MF. This looks fine. Let's start with having, I'll just start distributing these now. Just have solo. Tala means speech in Norwegian. Go. Same thing, and again now. So the arrangement style has been indicated. It's dum 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 dum. Keep that up for the second one, but of course it now has that bit where it changes. Keyboard. I should note, so in these, in this chord does not have a third. This is, you will find that classical composition theory dictates that you should have that third. I am more of the belief that when you've got an open fifth, there is going to be an element of the major thirds in the overtones anyway. So if you've, some of you might have seen the episode where I talk about the harmonic series. When you've got any note, there's a series of notes that will ring out on top of that note. So in the case of A major, which is what this is going for, that's going to be, you know, fundamental, octave, fifth, fourth, third. And these are present in the sound. You might not hear them consciously unless you're used to that, but the single note there has an element of all of those notes above. So if you have singers that sing with a resonant sound, they can almost like imply that major third in there. So I think it's kind of, if you find that it benefits the voice leading, you can sometimes leave out the third and there will be like an implied third almost in the overtones. In this case, I'm doing it because I want the sopranos to harmonize above, and I want the soprano ones to harmonize above and the soprano twos to sing the melody, and I want altos on A. It's also like quite a brief chord. If you're lingering on that chord for a long time, then I'd probably put the third in to get it to sound as strong as possible. But because it's short, it's kind of fine to leave it out. Okay, let's do this the same way up until the place where the harmony changes. Now I'll go down. We'll do it like that. There, and now I'll stick. Now, when you do this, you have to then write it. You have to then restate. Like it's kind of obvious, but then once you've written solo here, there's an implication that thing continues to be a solo. But I mean, I think most people would probably see that. Oh, well, obviously we're supposed to keep singing, but I think just to make the sheet music look nicer, you can then put this in. I'm just spreading them out. I think about the 3D space of the choir with one section here, one section here, one section here, and then it's nice to have someone over there shout something, someone over there maybe, over there, so that I spread them out in this way. Let's see if there's any comments. It's amazing. So Marco says, it's amazing how this piece is starting to make sense, even if I don't get a single word. Well, I mean, music can make sense in a lot of different ways. There is, with music that has lyrics, there's of course the meaning of the lyrics, but songwriters will put meaning into the way they write their melodies. And I think this song is very like sound when it comes to the melody. The melody has a very pleasing shape to it, if you will. You know, the that's like a nice first phrase. That's like a very natural and pleasing way to continue that. And then oh, I'm playing so badly. That feels like it's almost like a comment on the previous lines. Like a question. And then the answer. And then a response to the question. So, in a sense, you could say the song carries meaning musically as well. Right, obviously it does, otherwise, it wouldn't really be good music. But there's a sense to the notes as well as the lyrics. And you could say, okay, why is it written this way? It is perhaps, and I don't know if this was the composer's intention, but it could be it's written a bit like a traditional hymn like choral piece, because it's very like decidedly not that in the content. It's a song about being hungover and talking about how you're never ever going to get that drunk again, and you're never ever going to misbehave and go out and do naughty things. So there's almost that irony as well of of singing a hymn about I will be very proper and I will go to church and etc. And then it's almost meant a bit sarcastically, because the narrator is not gonna go to church. They're gonna go out and get drunk again, and that's what the lyrics are saying. And so that's maybe comment in that sense. Marcus says, yeah, totally agree. Yeah, well, that's what makes music interesting, is you can interpret things, and whatever the composer had in mind might not be the same thing that the listener has in mind. And I often find people when they listen to a piece of music, and I ask them, what is it about this music that you like? And they might say all sorts of things. I like how how there's this bit where it suddenly goes like quiet, and then there's this thing that happens here, and it's it's part of what makes music interesting is people get different things out of it. It's the same with poetry, books, and plays. Yeah, it's I think it's why we love it. Okay, so Ludig. Now, I think maybe here I'll actually make this piano, because then it's this next phrase to me is like a question. And then back to so I'll probably have this one. It's MF. I might. I've already kind of used. Okay, so I might maybe just steal for myself. Steal the arrangement I did, because I now changed this bit here. Oops. This is where this phrase happens earlier, and I might as well take that. And then I might do it slightly differently for verse 2 to create some contrast. So let me see if I can remember. I think this was roughly what I did. Let me just check. It's it's always a good idea to try, if you have sections that are basically the same thing, unless you're, changing something very significant, like here, changing the alto part completely, I would keep it basically exactly the same if possible, because people will tend to go into autopilot and they will make mistakes if there's like a slight difference that they forget about. That's not their fault. That is just how the brain works. You've got an idea of how something works. You do that, and then if it's not that way, then you have to keep fighting against that impulse to just sing what feels like it should be happening. What feels like it should be happening. Okay, so they're all down there. So I'm keeping it basically exactly the same here. So all they have to worry about, no, they don't. They're not going to sing top A. Basically, I'm just allowing them to just think about the words, and then their muscle memory, once they've rehearsed the piece for a while, of course, will tell them what the notes are. Okay. Okay, so should I kind of like the way it's done in the other verses? Okay, I'll see if I can do something a little bit different in verse number 2. Maybe, okay, let's just write this out. What do I do here? You'll notice here as well, I've kept this B flat chord doesn't have a B flat in it. This is it's kind of like a suspension. I'm suspending the root, and you can't really suspend the root, but in the case of 3-part music, there's that element of you keeping the note, that C from the C chord, that then resolves to a B flat, which is in the in the vein of a suspension. So that then creates a bit of tension and release. Tension and release. That's the key component to good arranging, is knowing how to do good tension and release, both melodically, both harmonically and rhythmically. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Let's just get this over here. Okay, that's what I want. So they might have to sneak a breath somewhere. It's long phrases. It requires breath control. I thought about this when I was just transcribing it as well. I think maybe I'll leave it at the discretion of the musical director to be like, okay, well, this discretion of the musical director to decide what they do in case they can't make it all the way to the end, and that's fine and that's understandable. Ultimately, it has to work for the singers that are going to be singing it. If it doesn't work for the singers that are going to be singing it, then that's not a good arrangement. Okay, so that's all fine. Make sure to restate the. Yeah, I like the arrange function is my favorite function in Sibelius. Let's get this over here. Let's write it in the dynamic. So I'm not. Yeah, okay. I need to just look over the notation quickly. Like here, for instance, there's an easy thing to miss. It's if you do something like this, there's always going to be someone in the back of the car. Are we supposed to be restating the second note or not? You will always get that question, and the answer is no. And that's the reason why you're asking this question is because I forgot to do what I just did, which was to delete the extra note, like so. That just happens when you do the arrange function. It still saves more time than the time you then spend. Okay, so okay, it's not too bad. I'm slightly worried when there's like consecutive minor seconds and stuff. This isn't too bad. I think I'll keep it. Okay. Now this is perfect because there's 3 of these spoken interjections. And there's 3 sections. So that makes sense. It adds up. The soprano 1s do it once, the soprano 2s do it once, the altos do it once. And they can decide who wants to do what. Right, now I think I need to do something slightly different in verse number 2. Because yeah, the original was the same arrangement 4 times. I don't like doing that. I like repeating things once, so you have the same arrangement 2 times, and then doing something different. Like in this case, I've now already changed things a little bit in the third verse, section B. And verse 4 is again choral style harmonies in a slightly higher register. So here, I might want to do something slightly different. Now here I have to just think about it. It could be nice here to have... So I notice here, for instance, this sits quite nicely in the alto range. Maybe I can give them a moment and have them do this melody. Like altos tend to be traditionally a fairly neglected section in the choir. They tend to get the extra note. They tend to get the note that the sopranos, tenors, and basses aren't covering with their interesting lines. So to give the altos a moment here might be nice. But then how do I want it to be... how do I make this nice and loud and like... Okay, I'll do the opposite of what I'm doing in the second one. So I'll have these guys, these ladies, and there might be some male altos as well, or some non-binary people, I don't know. Okay, let's try that. This is going to be a bit more like... Let's try this. There we go. Now this is going to be a little bit more emphatic, high, and I'll have them do... There. So this way, the altos get a bit of the melody, so they get to have a bit of fun too. They're not just singing the bass line the whole time. Not that there's nothing wrong with singing the bass line, but this will mix it up a bit and give them something else to do. So it's not just the same thing over and over and over. Let's and then yeah, I'll keep the order of the spoken interjections just the same every time. Like that's going to be probably a different member of the choir every time as well. and get that over here, maybe. So this will, okay, so let's just listen. I realize I've not actually played a lot of the stuff I'm arranging. Maybe it's going to be a little bit more nice for you to hear it. So I'm going to play what I've done so far so you can hear how it works. So that's fine. Yep. That sounds quite good. Now altos. That's like that little screechy dissonance here. That is what it's all about. I mean, I'm kind of wondering if I even want to have this as an open chord, because it's going to make it quite stark. The word they say here is it's a swear word, and it might be nice to have that on a pingy open chord. So let's. I changed my mind. I wanted to have the third, so yeah, there we go. Right. No, how do I do this? This is going to be, I mean, this is going to be right at the top of the range for altos. Maybe I then mix it up. So I have the altos do the first phrase. Then maybe second soprano's doing, or first. Oops. Wondering if then so this one has the angry curse word, and then this one is about Jeg skal vandre rett forbi deg som en nybakt kapellan. I will walk right past them like a freshly educated priest, or like a recently, anointed priest. So it's all about being a bit sanctimonious, and it's kind of, it's, the main character is obviously not going to do this. So I'm wondering if should I do this loud or quiet? I feel like the next phrase is a little bit more sarcastic. Jeg skal sitte som en nonne I en bedring og drikke kaffe medans kravla går om åndelige ting. Also, it means I am going to sit like a nun. So they changed it to nun from, I think, priest in the original. I will sit like a nun in a prayer circle and drink coffee while the talk is all about spiritual things. This is like the really like the it's not probably not supposed to be done sarcastically, but it's not going to happen is basically the gist of things here. So I'm wondering from a dynamics point of view, originally, so going back to my my good old dynamics chart. Let me see if I can show you. There we go. So now I've mostly observed this. Starts out kind of mid dynamics. It doesn't stay the same the whole time, but like it stays mostly around MF. Goes up verse 2. Now it is going to be going down in verse 3. So maybe it's better for me to keep it fairly loud throughout verse 2. Just to have that structure. And again, this is why I recommend people make dynamics graphs, because it helps you keep your structure consistent. It helps you have something to refer back to if you then, is the structure still sound? I don't know. I've been working on this for too long and I've lost all track of things. Then you look back and oh yeah, this was what I was thinking at the start. Okay, am I still doing that? So I'm gonna go with F, so loud. And I think maybe how do I? Maybe I'll just have some R's. Ta-da. Okay, just for a bit of contrast, I might go with this. I might even, because it's about being, I'm gonna walk right past them like a fresh, like a new priest. I might even just put it in major here. So we've just had. I realized that I said earlier that I don't like to use diminished chords as dominants. What I mean by that is I don't like using them as dominants when you have the root of the chord in the bottom, like this. So I am aware that I that I did the thing I said I don't like earlier in the video. It depends on context. With music, it always depends on context. Oh, parallel moving fifths are bad in certain contexts. Oh, having people jump a huge interval is bad in certain contexts. So it's always about context. And in this case, I think this works fine because I'm not doing it really as a diminished chord moving up from the bottom. I'm doing it more as two tension notes resolving with the melody at the bottom. Yeah, I'm making excuses. I do. It's a, yeah. Okay. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll just have them do oohs. No, I'll do R's because it's so loud. R's are a little bit better for the loud sections, in my opinion. Acappella. Cappella. There. And then soprano twos do this. And then we get the tutti set. Go, and I'll put it in here as well. Yeah, I'm just restating. It's, yes, it's obvious, but also it's good to restate it, just so that there's no doubt. You know exactly what's happening. Right. Where was I? Jag ska vandra rätt förbi en som en nybörd kapellan. Okay, so just doing oohs. I think I can even have the second sopranos follow the other harmony. So they're now in thirds with the soprano ones. Like that always sounds nice. Like you can generally count on. Yeah. They all do the words here. I just have them do ooh. Maybe make it clear that I want these to carry into the next phrase. In fact, let's have them start MF or MP maybe even. And go up to F. Not double F, that's a bit much. Just F. Like so. There. That might work well. Let's listen to this. dig. Oh, that did not turn out right. This has to go up. And these need to have MP on them. Otherwise, they're still an F. There we go. Well, that sounds quite nice. Okay. Shoo. Oh, I'm trying to keep 2 tabs on the chat a bit so I can comment if people have any questions. Or yeah, it's I'm sorry if I take a while to get back to people's comments. Okay, so here now I've already used that. Maybe I should. Okay, here's what I'll do. Or I'll give the alto, I'll give the soprano 2s their moment here. Like there. And I'll have the other parts do oohs. Okay, so I'll do this. Okay. I'm coming up with things. Again, I'm just trying to create contrast to the other sections of the song. So what I want is I'll keep the dominant pedal here, but I'll keep them as long notes. There, and this will be this. So now I'm checking what notes are covered by the main line and what can I add in to fill out the harmony. Now there will be a third missing here and there. That's fine. Okay. There, and I'll let the... So the soprano ones are probably going to do this phrase. Let's divide them like here. And again, maybe I should do it here so you can see. So I'll go notes. Oh, where do I go? It's, yeah, note input, arrange, and then I arrange using standard arrangement. Boom. It just puts the notes out. I do it using the key command, as I said. So that I save some time. Now here, just going to fix up my, like so. There we go. Now I'm doing quiet. Maybe MP is, I think MP is actually fine here. And then I'll have them do oohs in this case. This should sound quite nice. And then that means that all sections now have like a moment. Altos have the first moment. Soprano ones have the second moment. Soprano one's second moment, and soprano two's third moment. And then I can probably just reuse use the same phrases from the first here. That's fine. Let me just copy that. So I'm gonna zoom out a bit. Sorry, I know that the writing gets really small when I do this, but now also I don't have, so here I make sure then, because I know that soprano ones are going to be doing this phrase, da, 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 da. I don't have them go any further down this because it's going to be a big jump. But like now they're going to go up a fifth. That's kind of fine. That should be just about manageable without them struggling. Could you show this? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my god, how long have I not been showing the screen? So this is streaming. Ugh, there we go. I'm sorry. Oh wow, that's embarrassing. Okay, so I was talking about the I was talking about the second verse. Okay, so I only missed out the second verse. Okay, I'll just quickly say what I've been doing because I realized that I've not shown it. So I think I already talked about the first verse. Okay, so here each section gets a moment. And I realize I've been saying, here, 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 look at this thing on the screen right now. It's like, I can't see the screen. Yeah. First, the altos get a moment. So what I mean there is the altos get to have the melody with the other parts doing like a counter thing at the top. They're singing the words. So, you know, they're not just oohing, they are singing the words. But the melody is in the altos. Okay, then the thing trudig. Just seen that before. Ik ska vandra rätt förbi dig som en dyrbar kapellan. That is the second phrase, which then is the soprano one moment, where the others are just doing oohs. And here, all I do is I just try and observe the harmony. The second sopranos are harmonizing, and they come together for the last bit of that phrase. Then the solo bit again. Then this bit. Quickly. So. And then it's the alt soprano twos that get a moment. So they now do the phrase. And the others are doing oohs. So this is just so that every section gets something to do. And also it's done so that it's what was I trying to say? It's kind of a little bit different. I'm not just doing choral style harmonies for the whole arrangement. I'm mixing it up a bit to create more interest, to give people something to do. Essentially to make sure that they don't switch off their brains. If they're doing the same arrangement over and over and over again, then it's easy to switch off your brains and become less invested. You don't have to reinvent the wheel as such. You don't have to go massively reharmonizing it. You can, if that's what you prefer doing, but you can just change things a little bit. Have new sections take on the melody like I've done. That's quite nice. It's always quite fun when you get to do a bit of the melody when you've been doing harmonies for a bit. I'm getting a question from MGB Choral Music. Is acapella your preferred choice of arranging? Approximately how much more time would you spend on the score after this point? Okay, so yes, acapella is my preferred choice of arranging, but that's kind of, there's a few reasons for that. I started doing acapella arranging almost like by accident. I think a lot of choral arrangers will end up doing it because they're in a choir and they just need arrangements. That's what happened to me. I was in London Contemporary Voices, and when I told them that I'd been studying composition, they were like, oh, we need an arrangement for this. Can you do that? And then I found I was good at it, and it just kind of went on from there. But yeah, I do prefer arranging for a cappella, mostly just because that's what people ask me to do. It's a thing about the work as well. You get when you're a professional musician, you are always dependent on people hiring you for things, and you need time to build up a reputation. And for me, I've been doing arrangements for professional performances for such a long while, and so that kind of becomes like a snowball effect. You do it, you get good at it, you get and people want you to do more, and so I do prefer writing for voices because I feel like I know how to write for them quite easily. Like, I mean, for a large part of the first part of this video, I wasn't even playing back the score because I just knew that this would sound good. Like, and I guess that's not the most academic way or the most pedagogical way of doing it, because you guys are obviously more interested in hearing what's coming out. But yeah, very often when I arrange, I might not even play it back until I've arranged the whole section and then play it back and then think about stuff. So yeah, short answer is yes, a cappella is my preferred choice of arranging, but that also just comes from having done it loads and being quite comfortable with the instruments. I do also arrange for orchestra, for other ensembles and stuff, but that's not generally what clients want me to do. They want me to do to do choir arrangements, so that'll be more stuff that I do in my spare time. Approximately how much more time would you spend on the score after this point? So I think I'm pretty close to finished with this one, I think. So I need to finish off this section, and then I will have arranged the whole thing. Now, what I will then do is I'll listen to the whole thing. I'll think, okay, does this work? And of course, with MIDI, with MIDI voices, you have to use your imagination and think about it, beyond what you're hearing, but also, will this work with people singing words? And then there's also the making the music presentable, which is also something you get used to and shouldn't really take that long once you're once you're used to doing this stuff. You can generally do layout quite quickly. It takes some practice, but it's not terribly difficult, and Sibelius generally will sort it out for you, so that notes don't overlap and stuff. And then it's Michael. Yeah, so yeah, Michael was commenting earlier today, and now he seems to have logged in with a second account, and he's hearing an odd echo. Yeah, that might be that you're hearing the stream coming out of two different streams at the same time. Okay, let's try and finish up this arrangement. Again, I apologize for forgetting to turn back to the score earlier. I hope it was only like 5 minutes or so, but I'll have to check the stream when I'm done and see. I can, for any future viewers, I'll put in like a little note that so that they can skip to where they can see the score again. Okay, so I just wanted to copy what I've done before here. There's nothing wrong with copying what you've done before. Just make sure that you copy it the same, so that you're not changing things very, very slightly. When you make a change, make sure that it's substantial, so that people will put that on a new shelf in their brain rather than on the same shelf, and then they start having trouble because they need to change one small note somewhere. So this is just practical advice. Yeah. Let's see. Let's do it like this. Now I'm just copying the stuff you see on the very side of the screen here. Let's move the cursor out of the way. There we go. This is basically just using the same arrangement I've done in the previous verse. Now, when it comes to repeating things like this, it's the best thing to do is just to listen over. Do you feel like it's being repeated too often? In that case, you might, choose to change things slightly. But I mean, one of the cornerstones of pop music is repetition. So people are used to hearing stuff repeated. We're used to having a chorus that comes again and again. That's not going to make people go like, oh, this is boring. Oh, why do I have to listen to the chorus of this pop song again? People like the chorus, so you repeat it. Okay. On the legating. Oops. Through it. Let's copy. There. Now I just need to clean up, so make sure that I've got all these little interjections sorted out. Then this is just me copying, moving stuff around. And then next I'll take care of the layout. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So a lot of writing out music is going to be like sorting it out to make sure that it looks nice and is easy to read, and you will see the difference in a rehearsal time. So a lot of the advice I give is trying to facilitate getting through a rehearsal quicker, making sure that people can pick up something as quickly as possible. And I think that's also just like my practical side is people never have time to rehearse. Like it's it costs money to rent a space. You know, you may not really have a whole lot of rehearsals before your concert. If you do, you're lucky, but a lot of the time you don't. On the professional level, you might only have one rehearsal before the thing, and people will just expect you to sort your music out yourself. Even with a community choir, like, people are doing it for fun. They might not spend loads of their spare time learning at home. They might only look at the music when they're in the rehearsal, and then they forget about it until they're back. And so, yeah, you can ask them to spend loads of time rehearsing at home, but you know that there's always going to be those people that don't do that. So if it's really something that's easy to pick up in a rehearsal, you're going to save yourself the headache of having to go over the thing again and again and again and be like, oh, why aren't you getting this? We've done this 5 times already. And you can avoid those situations by preparing your scores correctly, by thinking about potential problems in advance, thinking about, ooh, that interval looks hard. Ooh, they've got, if you're thinking about voice leading, ooh, they've got this tritone, and then they've got like a fourth and a descending sixth after each other, stuff like that. Again, I'm speaking very technically here, but there's generally, once you've done this for a while, you can spot these potential problems in advance. You'll see something, you think, okay, I can already see the person in the back putting their hand up, being like, this, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing in this section. Which is not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, that's a good thing, that people feel comfortable saying, I don't know what I'm doing here. In fact, you should want to have people that are, honest and say that I don't know what I'm doing here. But you don't, you want to try and avoid it, not so much because you don't want people to tell you when they can't do it, but rather because that wastes time. You want to focus only on learning the song and then rehearsing the song and sorting out, getting all, like, note bashing right up until the end of a rehearsal is boring. You want to be working with the dynamics. You want to spend time on the, let's just put this all the way at the top. You want to be spending time on the expression. You want to get all the consonants together. You want to work on the blend. There's so many things you want to rehearse, and note bashing is basically the least interesting part of a rehearsal. You want to avoid having to do loads of note bashing. It's not what makes the music interesting. Let's just put this really high like this, and I'll just nope. There. This is not supposed to be pitched. This is just roop means shout, and that's what they did in the original. Sorry, I was distracted there. Okay, so now I've written out. I've made the whole arrangement. It's done. I'll get rid of the piano stuff. There, don't need it. Don't need it anymore. It's done its job. Now I will go out of panorama mode. So this whole time I've been working in panorama mode. If you go, let's see, where is it on the top here? Let's see if I can find it. I think it does show up at the top here, but I can't see. Essentially, oh yeah, view, yeah, panorama mode. There it is. This is the best way, in my opinion, to be working when you're working in Sibelius. It shows everything very clearly as like an endless strip of paper like this. So it's very linear. It's the same way you would work if you're editing video. You'd have it linear like this. And I find it's the easiest way to kind of to work until I'm more or less done, because that means I don't have to think about the layout. The layout that's just something that's like a necessary evil of doing notated music, is you have to sort out the layout so it's easily readable. Because when I go in here now, like, there'll be bits of it that, like, this is a mess. This is just what it's done automatically. Like, I've not looked at this at all, but this, if I were to work and I'd have to deal with the layout at the same time, it would just be like, it would be counterproductive. So I prefer to leave the layout right until the end. So the first thing I'll do is I kind of like having double bar lines and stuff be at the end. So I'll just sort that out. Again, this is just, you get used to doing this. So I'll do, I think I'm okay with the size of the parts. I think I want to have 3 on each page. So the first thing I do, I always do this, by the way, this is every time. Go to, hang on, I'm trying to do it with the ribbon at the top here so you can see where it is. I always use key commands. Reset note spacing. This is the best function in the, well, this is there's 2 super good functions. Reset note spacing is one of them. Select everything. Reset note spacing. What it does is if you, for some reason, your notes have become squashed together or dragged out, it removes all of that and it spaces everything out. So that's easy to read. It's not perfect, but it sorts out most problems. Next, in layout, optimize staff spacing. There, boom. It just sorted out all the awkwardness with the staff being the staves being spaced out weirdly. So easy. Okay, so I like to make sure that I have the title of the piece on top of every page. This is just because I can imagine someone walking down the street, you know, with their folder like this, and they drop it. And then it's all their music is mixed up, and it can be hard then if there's not a title on top of every page to know which ones go together. So again, it's just this really practical thing. Okay, let's get this in. So I unhide this. Again, I'm just using key commands, but I unhide this top text. I edit it, and then you see it's like written all weird here. This is a wildcard. So this takes information from the file tab, which I'll show you. But the one I want is title. You can just write the title straight in, but then by using a wildcard like I did, you see it just replaces that with the name of the file. If you go into file, this is where all this information is found. Like you don't have to do this. I like to do this because I'm a stickler for organizing and so on and so forth. I think I saw someone had a comment. Okay, DS7+1 says, since you mentioned, do you have any tips for my situation? Last month, my local choir in the town over have been doing rehearsals of the entire liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. Okay. And I have not been practicing for a month because of heavy vocal trauma. Now that my voice is back, what advice can you give for learning fast because we have problems? Okay. Right. So first of all, be careful. The voice is a strong, the voice is very good at recovering, and the body in general is very good at recovering. If this was like a one-off vocal trauma, then that's probably fine. I want to say, first of all, if you experience that while you're singing, that your voice starts to hurt a lot, you may start to cough up a lot of gunk, and you might lose your voice, then I would, first of all, and this is more long term, so I'm gonna get to the more immediate thing in a minute, but I'd say you should, as a singer, not feel pained when you're done with a performance. That means that you've been singing using your voice in unhealthy ways. It's fine if it happens sometimes. It does, and it's still, it happens to me as well. But just if you find that happens a lot, then make sure that you maybe get a singing teacher to help you work on your technique, because over time that can lead to stuff like nodules. But yeah, okay, let's talk about this. Learning fast. Okay, so I'm assuming if this is classical music where you're using scores, I'd say the first thing I'd want to make sure I get to grips with is the lyrics. A lot of the time, religious music is not written in English, it's written in Latin, which means, you might not so easily be able to read it quickly. But essentially, the more stuff you have to pick up at once, the harder it is. So I would separate them into elements. I'd go text first. I would maybe write out or read the text online. Then I would find the music, and I would work out the rhythm of what I'm doing. So if we say, let me use the music I'm working on as an example. Let's say I'm an alto in this choir, and I am going to be doing this first line. First thing I want to do is I want to read the text. I morgon vill jag börja på ett nytt och bättre liv. Okay. Now, if I need to learn this off by heart, that's a whole challenge in and of itself. For learning stuff off by heart, it helps to write it down. So I'll write down the text loads of times and go away, and then I'll try and write it, and do that over and over until it sticks. Listening to it loads, writing it down, reciting it, get the muscle memory going. Next, I would want to work out the rhythms. So in this case, because I can read rhythms, then I'm able to work out that this is like if this is a 1 and a 2 and that kind of rhythm. I morgon vill jag börja på ett nytt och bättre liv. Like you will, if you have a metronome, then use that. Really work out mechanically without pitch. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I morgon vill jag börja på ett nytt och bättre liv. Work it out like that. Because then you've isolated the words, you've isolated the rhythms. Next, you add in the pitches. E, e, and then you can do the same with the metronome. I morgon vill jag börja på ett nytt och bättre liv. By isolating different components of the phrase, you won't have to absorb too much at once. Next, I'll say, if you have a recording, that's really useful. I've often experienced that I've had to learn music off by heart very quickly, and I find it impossible without having some sort of recording. It can be MIDI, it can be actual people singing, it can be some terrible, rehearsal recording in mono where people are singing the wrong notes. That's not a problem. I just find it really hard to engage my muscle memory if I'm not actually singing out and listening to something at the same time, because ultimately choral singing is you sing with your ears. Some conductors say you sing with your ears when you sing in a choir, which is not a bad analogy at all. It's you have to listen and you have to adjust to what's happening around you. And if you have access to that, use that. And isolate words, rhythms, pitches. So now I don't know DS7+1 if you play another instrument. If you can, for instance, play through your part on the piano, that's also quite useful if you're learning stuff on your own. If you don't play another instrument, or maybe if you've got written music that you don't read well, I mean, first of all, I hope your conductors have foreseen that this might happen and has made rehearsal parts, or if there's like some sort of resource where you can get this information. And then it's just a case of setting aside time and doing it. Now, the entire liturgy of Saint Chrysostrom. I'm sorry, John Chrysostrom. I don't know how long it is. If it's like a typical cantata where you're talking about maybe half an hour of music, then I would say make a plan. Think, okay, I've got this many days. I can rehearse this much each day. Don't overdo it. Don't leave it all until the end, especially if you've experienced vocal trauma, because that's you always have to take care of the health of your voice. It's many a good singer we've lost because they've destroyed their voice using it unhealthily. So keep that in mind the whole time. If it hurts, be very conscious of that. So maybe say you maybe have an hour. Work through. You can even do it movement by movement, but if you can do it, you can also do it all of it at once. Depends on how much information you feel like you're able to take on at once. And yeah, just don't leave it all to the end. I've got 1 hour, 2 hours, and make sure that when you've put it all together, sing it out in full voice, because that's what you'll be doing in the concert. And it's good for your muscle memory to use your full voice when practicing, because it means that you're connecting the physical sensation of singing it with full voice to the performance. So yeah, I think that's probably the best tips I can give, not knowing, the whole situation. I see Marcos also said, if you experience the heavy vocal trauma, you should consider rehabilitation. Depending on the type and severity, it may not be. Yeah, and I do agree. Take the health of your voice very seriously. Your voice will tell you if something's wrong. It'll tickle, it'll itch, you might feel like you've got like some cold symptoms. It's not a problem when it happens occasionally. and it does, unfortunately, all of us, we sometimes have this happen. I think a lot of singers, especially, we've not gotten to do too much singing during COVID because all the choral appearances have been closed. We've started some limited rehearsals in my hometown, and I have noticed that I am a bit out of shape singing wise. And then when I finish, I do feel sometimes a little bit like I've got a slight cold. And that to me is a signal that, okay, I'm out of practice. I need to be careful. It's once it starts hurting badly is when you need to stop, just because you want to make sure that this doesn't become a bigger thing. Our bodies are very good at recovering and fixing things, but only to a certain point. So yeah, I'll say there's stuff you can do to learn. Absolutely. You need to, think about, is my voice going to be able to do this without there being further damage? Okay, I've got a comment. The liturgy is about an hour long, but as you said, lyrics are in my native language, Serbian, and I have experience in some piano. Everything you said is very useful, and thank you. Well, I'm happy I can help. And yeah, it does help a lot when it's in a language you know, because that takes care of one problem. And then you can do, like I said, you can consider learning the lyrics by heart, writing them out on a piece of paper, going away, coming back, trying to write them again. And it will feel annoying at the start, but eventually it will stick. But yeah, I wish you the best of luck. Be very mindful of your vocal health, and hour long. With a lot of these pieces, it's with a lot of liturgical music, sometimes you'll have moments of a soloist or a priest, and then you might have even some instrumental sections, and so you have to also consider how much singing it's going to be in total. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff there which I don't know, but I wish you I wish you the best for the performance. Okay, let's get back to the arrangement. Let's see. So am I going to be open with the leaves? So I was just sorting out layout, right? So I've already put in my name and stuff here, and I'll put in the composer and the lyricist. This is just quite common with these kinds of scores. Let's see, I want to just put that here. So I find sometimes it's not enough space at the top here. So I'll go to layout, and then you might not see this dialog box, but essentially I'm just giving it slightly more space right at the top of the page. Like so. It just looks slightly nicer to me. And then with vocal music, this tends to be kind of by default set up for instrumental music that doesn't have a lot of stuff happening underneath the staff. Like there might be some dynamics, but with vocal music, there's generally a lot of stuff happening under the staff. And so I tend to also make sure there's some extra space underneath, like so. There we go. Now you can look out for stuff like here, like this kind of goes a bit too far to the side, so I just drag it in a bit. Like so. And again, a lot of this is here. I usually write the year when I've arranged it at the bottom, and so I just make a little bit more space for that to fit. Maybe even more. Like when you get into actual like publishing and stuff, then all of this stuff becomes a lot more important. If you're just writing for your community choir and you know that, ultimately they might be the only people who are ever going to use this music, then this becomes less important. But I'm a stickler for for putting out nice looking scores, and I quite like having it look all nice. So let's see. But now you just look through, see if there's any overlaps, any places where stuff is looking slightly weird. Like Sibelius kind of takes care of a lot of the stuff quite well on its own. It'll be stuff like, the margins. They might not be quite right, but like this generally looks fine. And so I'm just kind of moving these around just so that they're like aligned next to each other. They look like quite easy to just read quickly. Yeah, so this is something which I find a bit annoying, is when I end up with like an extra page. It's not really easy to do anything about it when this happens. You can try to maybe, let's see if I can do it. If I can shift stuff along a little bit. and see if I can just get a few more things on that last page. It's not super important, but it's just kind of a thing that yeah, let's just have a look through and see if there's a point where, see, that can probably be a bit more space there. That's fine. I'm just doing this. It's because I want, essentially, I don't like it when there's like almost an empty page at the end. It just looks a bit naff. I like it when it's a full page. So I just add, like, just space things out a bit more like this. There we go. Now, so now it's a full page here. Now I do the same thing I did at the start. Optimize staff spacing, the whole score, and reset. Was it apparent? Yeah, reset note spacing like so. Now this will probably be it. Oh, so let's listen through. Let me just check quickly. Okay, so I've got a comment from MGB from Michael. What stave size do you tend to use? Can't read it on the screen. Is it a shortcut you're using to shift the bars? Okay, so yeah, there's probably a lot of shortcuts happening at the moment. Stave size. So stave size depends on how many instruments. In this case, I'm sorry that it's probably not super easy to see on the screen, but yeah, it's here it's staff size 7, and that's what Sibelius tends to default to. I'll make a judgment call based on how many instruments, and I might also, it's kind of a bit lame to say, but I'll base it on, do I think that they're going to be able to read small print or not? If you've got a choir of mostly older people, it's probably better to go with larger print, because you will end up with a situation where they're all, singing like this because they're trying to see. So big is good in those situations. But yeah, this is 7. And what was the other comment? Let's see. So the shortcut you're using to shift the bars. Yes. So what I was doing before was I was creating a system break. So I select a bar line, like here, select it, and then I press enter. You can see this kind of thing. It's also at the top here, but that's just a system break. So what it does, it cuts the music and it puts the next bar underneath. There's different kind of breaks you can do. You can do system break, page break, and then you can do various different layout things to make it more easy to read. So yeah, it's there's all sorts of stuff you can do. I saw there was one more comment, but let's just listen to this once. I want to just make sure that I'm happy with the whole thing. So we'll listen from the start. Dude, hey. So here I'm seeing that I made a mistake. So, yeah, this is sounding quite good. Good so far. Let's go from the strings. But I do think it's slightly slow, and I want to just turn up the tempo to maybe 66. About tempo markings. So I've written in so typically with classically styled music, you'd write in the Latin indication, and this is something you can find, online. And metronomes tend to kind of be locked, old-fashioned metronomes, that is, to be locked to certain values. I tend to stick to those just in case, the conductor has an old-fashioned metronome. You can write anything you want, really. You can write 64.1, like in our day and age, that wouldn't be terrible. But ultimately, the tempo is going to be fluctuating throughout the performance anyway. So I just write kind of, this is roughly what it is, and then the rest is up to the conductor. Okay, I thought it was slightly slow. Here we go, down here. Yeah, verse 3. So now I feel like maybe I should have the previous verse louder. Because I like the fact that this is quiet. I like that this, but I feel like the effect is lost if the previous verse isn't loud throughout. So I'm actually going to change this all to F, and I'm going to change these U's to R's. This should be FF. So this is, this is the sort of thing you will then be able to change if you, like me, you hear it and you're like, it's not quite working how I imagined it, because I'm noticing that this section actually needs to be louder. I think it's okay to have these as R's and loud. I'm going to listen to it, of course. Here I can do this thing. Ooh, this is quite fun. FP with an accent on it. So what that means is they're singing loudly. Och dricka kaffe medan skravla går underliga ting. So you have that effect, very typical for big bands, where it's like loud and then quiet, and then rising up and back, and then into loud, just to get a nice little effect. I think this is going to work slightly better. And I think I'll keep this loud. And then the next piano will be more effectful. I'll continue with this. I just want to check for more. I saw someone that commented, so I want to make sure I address it. Also, another question from DS7+1. Sorry for going off topic, but I heard from my mother and father that smoking tobacco doesn't affect basses as badly as other voices. Is it true? I think what I'll say is I don't know. I am not. I would speak to someone. I would speak to a doctor about that kind of stuff, because I really don't know. I mean, I could say what I think, but I honestly I'm not. I'm not qualified to be talking about it. I don't know how much tobacco affects your voice. It's quite likely that it does, because it does happen. Around your vocal folds. You are breathing in smoke and stuff, and that does go past your vocal folds, so it will. I think it's fair to assume that it will have an effect, but basses as badly. You must take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm no doctor. I don't think that with all these things it's always a question of amount. How much do you smoke? How often do you smoke? And I think everyone will get affected somehow. It's just maybe you don't hear it as much with basses. I don't think saying that it doesn't affect them as badly is quite correct. It might just be that in that range, you don't perceive what happens. But I think I'll say that I think I think that you might maybe not hear the difference quite as strongly as you would in the higher singers, but I don't know. So I would ask a professional about this. That is a professional who knows more about tobacco and how it affects the body. It's my my reasoning is, yeah, it probably affects them about the same, but you might not hear it as much, is what I will guess. And this is a guess. This is Knut guesses, not Knut knows. Knut knows about arranging. He doesn't know about all the effects of tobacco on the body. Okay, so I'll listen to verse 2 again. Now I've changed the dynamics to be more loud because I want then the third verse to have that effect of, ooh, it's quiet. What's going on? So this will work. It's Sibelius doesn't quite play it correctly. Yeah, this is really cool. I made a spelling mistake here. Yeah, so before I go on, I think this works better now. Going from something that's much louder into something that's much quieter with this dominant pedal that I mentioned. I think this works better. Let's go from this phrase again. So, yeah. So the tie. So I'm just worried about the cadence of this. I think if I put a little tenuta mark on it, just make sure that yes, you should emphasize this syllable more than the one that's on the beat. I think then it will work. I'm just always a bit concerned that it's going to come across a bit awkward. But did I have another worry? I think it's kind of okay. Oh yeah, these. I want to make sure I actually get these in all the other verses because I forgot about this. Some E, skikkelig, som I, oppføre meg skikkelig som I. Yeah, they can do breath here. So I write in the breath because I think that's part of the arranging process, is making sure that people know what to breathe. Yeah, I want a breath here as well. So now I'm just thinking about breaths here. Oh, stop når hanen galer og forvoksen. Yeah, I think here, ideally, I want them to carry on. Okay. I'll deal with the last one in a minute, but let's go from here. Through like. So does this work? Let me just hear that one more time. that'll be a shout. Okay, so am I convinced about this ending? Let's see. Let me hear that one more time. So I think this works quite well. It's also good now to have after that quiet previous verse. Now, so I want this. It's fine. Just move that over here. Looks a little bit nicer. Just have them go a little bit louder here. Not more on the MP. I think that these should actually be FPs with accents on them. I think that's just going to be a bit more effective. And then definitely up to FF here. Okay, let's listen to just the latter part of this. Do I want... do I want this to be a bit shorter, perhaps? Okay, so... Dere ska meg på først, tror jeg. That might... No, I think I'll leave that up to the conductor, actually, and I'll just keep this the way it is. Because I mean, obviously, I will be sending this to them, and I'll say, okay, do you want any changes? Do you want me to, you know, move some stuff around? That's, you know, they might have things they want me to change, and in that case, I can do that later. It's also, you know, I am working for a client who will have opinions, so I can spend ages trying to, you know, change things around here, and then they might say, actually, we want it all in unison octaves now. You know, that can happen. I'm not saying it will, but like, there's every possibility that something will have to be changed. Let's just listen to this again. I think because of where it is in their voices and the fact that it is going to go louder, it's going to get loud and emphatic. And I think just the fact that it's getting louder and emphatic will make the effect work. So I think this sudden key change here, this is a very manageable key change. I've written it out in such a way that the new notes aren't going to come as a surprise. And then, you know, in context, this will be easy to do. And this is all voice leading. Yeah, I think I will probably stop here. But there's also a thing where you have to like decide when enough is enough on an arrangement. I think any further stuff I do here will be, you know, will just be about little details. I'm kind of overall quite happy with the way this has turned out. So this should probably be pulled up here. There, the layout stuff. But yeah, like now there is an arrangement. It fits nicely on 6 pages. It's got the new lyrics they wanted. It's in 3 parts throughout, which means it's easy. There's no difficult splitting of the sections. But yeah, I think I'm quite happy with this. So for those of you who do practice parts for your groups, I will show you where you can find like a useful plugin for this. So it is on the first page, home. I think, yeah. So here it says rehearsal recordings. I don't know if this is coming across in the, this might not actually be coming across in the stream. But yeah, if you go to this plugins here, if it's not covered with my face, there's one called rehearsal recordings. And this allows you to create rehearsal recordings quickly, where it's basically you can choose to have the whole group pan to one side and the section whose rehearsal track you're making in the other side. You can choose to have, you know, the rest of them quiet and the other ones loud. This saves time. It means you don't have to go manually panning stuff, and you know, it means that you can get them out fairly quickly. So I recommend that people use this when they work with choirs who need rehearsal parts. There is nothing, you know, that is quite common that choirs need rehearsal parts, but generally they, in my opinion, in my experience, they will accept rehearsal parts made from MIDI. And you know, it's going to add a lot of work time for me if I'm to record this, especially considering it's all female voices, and I normally sing the tenor part, so a lot of this would be out of my range. But yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much happy with this, and I think I'll call it. So I'll now send this off to the client and say, okay, this is it. This is the MIDI. Listen to it. Have a look. See if you like it. And they might say, oh, we hate it. Oh, we should never hire you to do this. Or they might say that this is fine, or they might have a couple of things they want to change. But yeah. Marco says, having the chance to see the whole arranging process was great and instructive. Thanks to No problem, Marco. I hope I'm going to do a couple of more of these streams. It's really quite useful for me as well, because it means that I actually sit down and arrange, and I put out more material on my YouTube. And you know, there's not been a whole lot of arranging happening this year for me, but I really enjoy, like, I genuinely quite just enjoy arranging music as well. I'll have a look into this Lady Gaga song that someone mentioned. I might maybe I can do an arrangement of that. But yeah, I hope I was able to answer some questions. I hope you found it useful, and yeah, I'll be seeing you for another stream very soon, hopefully. So thanks for joining.